Okay, my project is called Green Surge City, the game. The first thing that we're thinking about is how, after this project is over, is any of this information going out into the world, and how is it accessible to people who aren't really interested in reading large sheafs of research. So I thought a lot about how this would work, and the first thing is that every city is different. There's different built infrastructure, political climates, ecosystems, cultures, economic factors, and everything is constantly changing. So how do we ever come up with real values for things, and are real values even valuable in the case that things are constantly changing? So planning and governance becomes infinitely complex when you're looking for these exact formulas. So I don't imagine there'll ever be an exact formula for an optimal green infrastructure plan for any city, but Green Surge does provide a lot of information on relationship dynamics within an urban environment and how to examine and manage those relationships and dynamics in order to optimize the effectiveness of Green Surge. So in addressing how to best communicate this to stakeholders and practitioners, I designed this game as a communication tool. It's basically a simplified version of an extremely complex system. So you're still working in a system format instead of trying to learn about something in a linear way or to try to tease out one idea without the acknowledging that it's connected to every other thing in the whole city. So, So it's designed to simplify the relationships but keep them intact, and then make less obvious relationships more explicit so that people can understand the principles that Green Surge has pulled out as important for design and maintenance. So I'll just move right into explaining the parts of the game. So the first part of the game to talk about is the components. So in the Green Surge research, they've pulled out 44 different types of green infrastructure, and then they were broken down into 8 categories. So I chose 8 different green infrastructure elements that represented those categories as best and accessible as I could. The next are roles. So the role cards represent, I chose 5 or 6 different roles, and each of these is related to who receives benefits from green infrastructure and who is paying costs. So on the role card, you kind of you're given sort of your backstory, like what you're interested in when you look at a city, what's important to you. And then you are given your tasks. And the tasks are mostly building green infrastructure, but also some gray infrastructure. And then there are restrictions on how much participation is required from your cohort. So some people need permission of the government to build anything. And then also the amount of tokens you get to begin with sort of is relative to in real life. Maybe environmental activists will not have as much capital as the government will, so they're adjusted this way. And then you receive benefits based on particular green infrastructure. For instance, if you're a business, you have a green roof on it, then you're directly benefiting from cost savings on energy. But you're also, as a citizen of the city, benefiting from lower heat island effects. So we're trying to show the relative benefits by distributing tokens in the game. The next piece of the game is chance cards. And the chance cards represent uncertainty. And so, as many of you I'm sure know, things happen, climate events happen, political changes happen, refugees come into a city, economic changes happen, and these cards come up at different points in the game, and they're geared towards events that green infrastructure could help curb. Like, for instance, you can see sewage overflow. I'm from New York City, and when it rains a lot, our wastewater treatment plants cannot handle this amount of rain, and raw sewage goes right out into all the public water. So if we had more catchments and more permeable surfaces, then we wouldn't have this problem. So in the game, as people are building, if this card comes up and they don't have enough permeable surface, then they have to pay the costs of sewage overflow. The game board itself is an average European city, was my idea, so I just took a couple of cities and put them together and moved things around and make sure that we could see the spatially explicit nature of benefits by having waterfront, by having different municipal buildings. The color on this looks a little bit strange, but there's residential buildings, municipal buildings, commercial buildings, green spaces, brownfields, and waterfront that people can choose to build their green infrastructure in. At the end of the game, this also came out a little strange, but at the end of the game, there is sort of the hidden benefits. These are scalar. They're looking at long-term benefits and bigger space, and they're things that people might not normally think about when they look at the game. So if, for instance, if I put an urban garden next to a school, I would know that, of course, that's a benefit to the children in this school, but I might not realize that by having forest around a recreational field, that I'm really upping the ecological value of that habitat by providing edge habitat and increasing biodiversity. So these are the things at the end of the game when they score what the end product that they've actually built, how resilient of a city they've created, that's when those things appear. So this doesn't show the full scoring, but that's basically the whole game. So thank you.